Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily. Ronnie Rance alongside TK Tommy Christan joining us from Tremonti's Meat and Seafood right by Parkview Baptist off Airline Highway in Baton Rouge. I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location in the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame studios, and we're presented by L'Auberge Casino, where we will be this Saturday at the Barstool Sportsbook doing Sports Shorts Radio. We'll be there from 10 until noon. Myself, Hunter McCann, Tommy Christan. We'll have some special guests as well that will join us on the show. That's over at Barstool Sportsbook inside L'Auberge Casino, at least Barstool Sportsbook for now. We'll see how long that lasts before they change the name or something. All right, TK. So a few things to get to. We'll kind of go in, I guess, sequential order. We'll talk a little LSU baseball. They had the press conference on Monday. We'll talk some LSU football. We've got some national news with Reggie Bush suing the NCAA. I watched a couple episodes of Swamp Kings about the Florida Gators, run with Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow and all that kind of stuff and all their problems. Got some thoughts on that. And Roger Clemens, could he be a Rougarou coach or player next summer? We'll tell you what that's all about. But let's first start with some LSU baseball. On Monday, Jay Johnson had his press conference to introduce Yeskie, the new pitching coach, who was with him for 2 years at Arizona in 20 and 21. The last couple of seasons, he was over at Texas A&M with Nolan Cain and Jim Schlossnagle and that staff. Before that, of course, he was at Oregon State. LSU beat Yeskie's Beavers in 2017 to get to the national championship game. And then, of course, they won a title when Yeskie was there. But they introduced him. They also introduced the former LSU Tiger pitching coach, Terry Rooney, who was in Baton Rouge in 07 and 08 under Maneri, and then had left to go be the head coach at Central Florida and bounced around a couple schools before he ended up back to LSU. Interesting press conference. My biggest takeaway is that there are now 5, and they didn't introduce the baseball ops coordinator, but they do have a new baseball ops coordinator. They now have 5 people in their staff. When you talk about the whole staff in that building, that in 2016, I believe it was, or 2017, all 5 of them were head recruiting coordinators at different schools, and all 5 of those schools finished in the top 25 of the country. So that's a pretty interesting stat, that you've got some people that know how to recruit. And let's face it, LSU, it's all about recruiting. It's all about getting the best of the best players. It's all about getting in that transfer portal and finding the best players that are the best fit for you before somebody else does, and getting the best JUCO and college players, high school players they can. And now you've got 5 people in that building that have direct experience for years and years and years doing that. That's a great thing for the program.
Well, it's all about recruiting. If you got 5 guys that have done that, then you have the LSU brand. You got the 7 titles on the Intimidator, the greatest college baseball fans in the country, where Omaha is expected. Not hope we go to Omaha this year. I mean, and I heard the comment from Coach Johnson on Monday that he had 2 big-time recruits who had signed professional contracts who texted him while he was in Omaha to say, I wish I would have went to LSU. And that was probably for a lot of reasons, not just the fact that LSU was on the way to winning it all, but the experience of playing in the SEC, playing at LSU, the exposure you're going to get versus low A or high A, riding around on a bus somewhere in Iowa or a bus somewhere in Pennsylvania or South Florida. And you got to eat a ham sandwich instead of a spread like LSU has. So, that was interesting to see that. Plus, that was a recruiting tool. That's Jay Johnson. He's pretty smart there. Like, hey, that next guy that's on the border, he's going to show them 2 texts and say, look, here's 2 guys that said they wish they would have came. Don't make that same mistake. So I saw Coach Bertman yesterday. I had to give him sign a book for a friend of mine. And I said, Coach, what do you think of the new staff? Because he was there like you were. And he said, very impressed, TK. Well, you could do the voice better. But he said, I was very impressed with it. They spent an hour answering questions. So Coach was he was fired up. And, he doesn't throw compliments around just for the heck of it.
Well, the other thing, too, is that, he mentioned those 2 players. Those are 2 players that both signed for over $2 million out of high school, and they both sent him the text messages saying, hey, I wish I hadn't done it. But getting back to, Monday for a minute. Before I do that, I had lunch yesterday with Doug Thompson, and Doug was telling me how, in his opinion, the way things are set up with the transfer portal, the staff, the NIL money. I mean, LSU now has a projected $3 million plus pot of NIL money for just baseball, to be able to annually go get players and all that, which is incredible. But that said, he feels like they're poised for a run to go get 2, 3, 4 national championships in the next decade. That Coach Bertman had told him, there's never going to be another run like that in the 90s, where LSU won 5 and 10. Now, 5 and 10 is pretty steep. But can LSU go get 3 or 4 and 10? They're in is the best situation of anybody in college baseball. I'll say that.
Well, I agree. And I mean, I'm not going to be surprised at anything they do. But, when you do talk to Coach Bertman, he likes to bring up the 3 times that he didn't win it when he thought he maybe had a team very capable of winning it. Because you do have to have some luck. You got to get that ball to be just fair or just foul, or you got to get that pitch that's right off the plate. You got to get the right arm to call it for you. There's some things like that involved. But I agree with what Doug said, and you and Doug talked about it. He's very close to the program and national championship champion himself, like you are. The pieces to the puzzle are there. Can they put the puzzle together every year? And I say, why not? Now, are they going to win it every year? Likelihood, no. But, we'll see. Time will tell. Let it play out. Use the famous Rants 13 quote. Let it play out.
Yeah. So getting back to the press conference on Monday, what did we learn from it? We learned that Terry Rooney is fired up to be back in Baton Rouge. I mean,
who wouldn't be?
You talk about a guy who literally played a large role in laying the foundation for the 2009 national championship team as the recruiting coordinator in 2007 and 2008. And a lot of those 2009 guys were guys that he recruited. And didn't get a chance to see the fruits of his reward. He told a story about how in 2009, when he was the head coach at Central Florida in his very first year, remember Cliff Godwin, who's now the head coach at East Carolina, was his assistant over there at Central Florida. They both had left LSU after the 2008 season. But he was saying how it just worked out that way. It wasn't intentional at all that when he took the Central Florida job, Central Florida was on the schedule to come to Baton Rouge to play LSU in 2009. And I had forgotten all about that. It jogged my memory when he was telling me the story, but that's very true that the year after he left LSU, he brought his team to LSU along with Godwin in 2009, the first year at the old Alex Box Stadium. And he made sure to bring his athletic director. He said, I only want one thing. I want you to come with me to Baton Rouge. I want you to experience big-time baseball, see how they do it, obviously to try to help his own program. And he said, well, it was not a good weekend. We got knocked all around the field. He said, but it was incredible to be on that side of the ball. He's super happy to be back. Yesky's an interesting decision because this is a guy who was at Oregon State. This is a guy who was at Arizona. He was at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a big time program. They pay big time money. They have the pot of money to go get recruits just like LSU does. And he chose to leave A&M to come to Baton Rouge. And all he really said to that was that, the familiarity that he had with Jay Johnson from the couple of years they spent together, the comfortability with that situation, and the fact that LSU is there. Everything that you need to be successful to win a national championship, multiple national championships is there, and that LSU is where you want to be, and that that it's already set up. And I know for a fact, after talking to the people involved behind the scenes, he's not making that much more to be here, but just a little bit more to be in Baton Rouge. So it's very interesting that he chose to leave Texas A&M, a program that I think, Tommy, is absolutely right there on the bubble of making that move, whereas he chose to come to Baton Rouge. And he's a very cerebral guy. He's not a big rah-rah guy. But he's also a guy that I think Jay Johnson realizes is probably going to stay a college pitching coach for a number of years. It doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's necessarily looking to be a head coach. Not to say it couldn't ever happen, but I think that's important to Jay. He wanted somebody, because this will be his third pitching coach in 3 years. I think he wanted somebody that was going to be stable for a while and spend some time in Baton Rouge, and it does seem to be the case with Yesky.
And my guess is they had that conversation, like you said, 3 pitching coaches in 3 years, but obviously the success has been there. But if you take Schemes out of it and Floyd out of there this year, the pitching staff numbers are not exactly great. However, the offense was so good, so strong, they ended up winning a national championship. And it's more of an offensive game now at the professional level and at the collegiate level. I can remember the days when, you had to have an ERA under 3 as a college pitcher to be considered pretty darn good. Now, if it's under 4, 4.5, you're considered a pretty darn good pitcher. So, that has changed where the game has become more offensive. And, plus official scorers call everything a hit. They hardly ever rule an error anymore. And that's been a big topic in Major League Baseball. They're doing that on purpose to drive that batting average up for players, but because the average have been going the wrong way for the last 10 years. But that's, again, so back to the college baseball thing. Hey, LSU baseball fans planning to be optimistic about. I'm going to get out there a handful of times this fall, like I did last fall, and check some things out.
Yeah. All right. So we move on from LSU baseball press conference on Monday. He went through the whole roster and stuff like that. We'll talk more about it later on, some of the new additions. The latest, you've gotten into Netflix, you've gotten into the quarterback documentary, you've gotten into other things. I got another one to throw on your plate, and I know many of you out there probably already have. The Swamp Kings featuring the Florida Gators from the 2005 2011 era of Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow and all their success on the field and their problems off the field. I'm 2 episodes in the Swamp Kings. It is outstanding. And as an LSU fan, you'll love the things that the Florida people say about that experience in 2007 when they came to Baton Rouge to take on LSU. Of course, the famous 5 fourth downs that LSU got on the final drive to win the game and all that kind of stuff. That's a big part of that, I think, episode number 2. So you definitely will be excited about watching that. So got some more homework for you to do, Tommy.
Well, I'm definitely going to do it. And again, we have a lot of LSU fans that watch Sports Shorts Daily. Because they play Florida every year, you should have a special interest. If this was about Nebraska, you might not be as interested, but with Florida and all the stories, the 5 fourth down conversions, everything else when Meyer was there, there were some Louisiana players on those Florida rosters. So, I'm looking forward to watching it because, you told me, I listened and I didn't. I got off of it. Now I'm back. You coached me up, and I thank you for it because I'm like a Netflix dude now. I even got it on my phone and on the big TV at home.
Wow, I'm so proud, like a proud papa. So the one thing I'll say about the Swamp Kings documentary on Netflix, I think that you're going to end up liking Urban Meyer more after watching the documentary.
Really?
You did
because I don't like him. I'm not a fan of Urban Meyer.
A lot of people aren't. I think you'll see a different side of him and maybe understand him better after watching the documentary. And I think he's a more sympathetic figure and a more likable figure. I really do. I'll be curious to see your takeaway when you watch it.
I'll definitely give it to you.
Yeah. And Tim Tebow, I mean, nothing's going to change there. Tim Tebow is who he is. Even behind the scenes, there's nothing fake about him. He is who he is. Everything you think Tim Tebow is who he is in real life. And there was nobody that cared more, worked harder, better leader. While all the temptations are going around, whether it's women or drugs or drinking or partying or whatever, that dude stayed laser focused and was a big part of, obviously a giant part of their success over there. And the maturity and all that he showed at that age is just incredible. But anyway, I'm curious your takeaway on that. All right, we move on. What else we got?
LSU football, 2.5-point favorite, 56.5 over under. They've obviously begun their preparations for Florida State. Florida State has begun their preparations for LSU. It's a Sunday night game. All college football eyes will be on that game the night before Labor Day from Orlando. There'll be a lot of Tiger fans down there. There'll be some purple and gold at the stadium. And all the reports, I read all the reports. I've caught snippets of Brian Kelly's pressers. And, it looks good. It's all about winning on a Saturday, or in this case, a Sunday. But I'm liking what I'm seeing. I'm liking what I'm reading. And I've talked to people who have been out there. And this LSU team, there's a lot of upside. We'll let it play out.
I'm really curious to see week one this year versus week one last year. Florida State had the advantage of playing that first game before they played LSU last year, and it really seemed to make a giant difference in the sense that Florida State was, sharper, better until the fourth quarter than LSU was last year. LSU, looked discombobulated. It looked like they could have used the scrimmage before they played Florida State. Now they're both in the same boat. So I'm curious to see, one, how that levels the playing field, and two, you got a quarterback now who's been through it a couple of times, right? Jayden Daniels was that guy a year ago. I think they probably learned so much from a year ago as a team. Brian Kelly with this type of player, the whole 9 yards. I expect the play to be elevated from a year ago. I don't think you're going to see the same thing that you saw last season where the offense was basically inept in that first half.
I think the start will be better, whatever that means. The first game last year, Florida State in the Dome, there was probably a lot of chaos on the sidelines, new coaching staff, players, and you're trying to beat a team that's pretty good on the other side of the field. I don't think that'll be in place this year. And I think they're going to beat Florida State. I mean, we'll do the prediction thing on Sports Shorts Daily and Sports Shorts Radio next week. And, of course, we'll be on radio the day before the game. So we'll have predictions there. But I'll tell you right, I think they're going to beat Florida State. And I don't know that it's going to be close at the end. So we'll see. We'll keep following that LSU football stuff and see what happens.
All right, let's move over to Reggie Bush. Speaking of college football, Reggie Bush suing the NCAA. What's that all about?
Defamation of character. They attacked him with the pay-for-play stuff, took his Heisman Trophy away. And many people said they should give his trophy back, especially with what's going on in college sports now. And here's what I say. Was Reggie Bush the only guy? What year was that? 2011? Whenever it was. 2005. Wow.
When he won the trophy.
Yeah, okay. I mean, he wasn't the only guy.
2005.
Yeah, getting benefits and all that. He got caught, okay. But we all know it goes on at most every major school in the country. And even the major schools who don't have all the wins they have less wins than they have losses. But, so I think, we live in a forgiving country. I think they should give him his Heisman back, and the NCAA, I guess somebody else will have to decide whether they owe him anything. Because did they cost him anything? That's the basis of a slanderous liability suit like that, or defamation of character. Did it? If I say, Ronnie, you're the dumbest guy I know. Well, if that doesn't cost you anything, you can't do anything to me about that. You just got to bear it. But if all of a sudden you get fired from 5 jobs that you have because I said that, then you could have some recourse. So I think in today's world, hey, Reggie Bush, and people around here familiar with it because of his time with the New Orleans Saints. Had a very good run with the Saints. He was a productive player for quite a while, quite an exciting player. So, I mean, I'm glad he's doing it. And somebody smarter than me and you, some judge or some jury, will decide if he should be owed anything. But give him his Heisman Trophy back.
We'll be following that. That's always interesting, after the fact when the rules change. I mean, look at Johnny Manziel, the documentary on him, how, in 2011, 12, whatever, back then, he was getting paid for autographs. Saturday in Mandeville, Hayden Travinski, Harold Perkins, Tommy White. Tommy White's getting like $50 or more an autograph at a public event on Saturday. It's amazing how the world changes just so quickly. Let's move on to a big topic in the world of Baton Rouge Rougarou. Yesterday, Casey McKenzie and Dirk Lockhart, a bunch of other guys. It was a package that Dirk and his company and all had bought a charity at a charity auction in Houston a few months ago, where 10 of them got to go to Roger Clemens' house in Houston, and the Rocket threw pitches to them in his batting cage and in his indoor batting cage. I think he threw at least 10 pitches to each person. You got 10 swings against Roger Clemens in his batting cage in the backyard. And then you got to go to a Astros game in a suite, and the Rocket made an appearance for like an inning or two or something in the suite. Pretty cool deal. General manager of the Rougarou, Casey McKenzie, a decent showing. If anybody happens to see him swinging online on the Rougarou, on the Baton Rouge Rougarou sites or social media or anything like that, just know that he claims to have a little bit of a pinched nerve in the shoulder. That's why the swing is a little bit awkward, Tommy.
Well, I told him I've seen better cuts under a Band-Aid. That's an old line, but a good one. And no, I saw all that stuff. They did the jersey swap where Clemens had the Rougarou jersey and Casey had the Clemens jersey. I was lucky enough to do an in-person interview with him back while he was still a player for the Astros many years ago at the LaBerge in Lake Charles, of all places. And he was still a player. We talked about steroids and all. I might have to dig that interview up. But no, Clemens is Clemens. Okay, 7 Cy Young, the Rocket. He was given that nickname by his manager in Boston when he was a rookie, Ralph Houk, who said that ball's got rocket speed. Well, that's how he came to be known as the Rocket. So, did he do steroids? I guess nobody really knows. I think he did, but nobody really knows. That's just my opinion. But that was cool and great publicity for the Rougarou. And, I don't think he has any college eligibility left, so I don't think we could sign him with the Rougarou in the Texas Collegiate League. But, maybe we get him to Pete Goolsby Field one night. We'll work on that.
We'll work on that. All right, TK, we'll be back on Friday morning for more Sports Shorts Daily presented by Tremonti's and LaBerge Casino. Tell us about Tremonti's on the way out.
Hey, don't forget all the high school football jamborees this weekend. Regular season begins next week statewide. Support the high school football programs. I'm going to be at a game on September the 8th, Franklinton at Covington. Hey, don't forget Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. The lunch special today is lasagna. They can do on-site catering and put together all the tailgate party packages, no matter how big or small your tailgate party out at the stadium may be, high school, college, Southern University, the Saints, or you're going to somebody's house or you're hosting people. Tremonti's.com. Tremonti's can take care of all your tailgate needs, everything from the wine, the whiskey, the beer, to the chicken, the pork, the steak, the Chairman's Reserve meats, the Wagyu beef, everything you need. A great Tremonti's hamburgers. You buy a box of 12 of them. They are through the roof good, and you can do it all as you need. Hey, don't forget to like and share this video. That helps us out a lot. Please do that. Tell everybody about it. Viewership way up with football season being here, so we appreciate that. Like and share this video. On behalf of Ronnie Rance, I'm Tommy Christ, and more Sports Shorts Daily this Friday, 9:30 in the morning. We'll talk to you then.